While I was studying world history, Jesus revealed to me that when the Jews began returning to Jerusalem after World War II in 1920, which was halted in 1939, and then resumed after World War II, are part of the fulfillment of the restoration of Israel described in Daniel 9. When the angel Gabriel told Daniel in Daniel 9:22, "I have now come forth to give you insight with understanding," he was telling him that he had come to give him understanding of the vision that he had seen previously and recorded in Daniel 8, that according to Daniel 8:27 astounded him, and he wanted to understand it, but there was no one to explain it to him. Daniel 8:27 states, "Then I, Daniel, was exhausted and sick for days. Then I got up again and carried on the king's business. But I was astounded at the vision, and there was none to explain it." When Daniel 8:19 states, "And he said, Behold, I am going to let you know what will occur at the final period of indignation, for it pertains to the appointed time of the end," it is telling us that the vision in Daniel 8 pertains to the end of the end times. And this means that when Gabriel told Daniel in the vision in Daniel 9 that he had come to give him understanding, he was telling him that he had come to give him understanding of the end times. In Daniel 9:24, Gabriel told Daniel that the vision he had seen in Daniel 8 and the events he was about to share with him pertain to the decree to put an end to sin, bring in everlasting righteousness, and seal up prophecy in Jerusalem, which we know is completed when Jesus begins reigning from Jerusalem for 1,000 years. Gabriel called the period of time that these events take place in 70 weeks, and told Daniel that this time period would be divided into a 7-week period of time, a 62-week period of time, and a 1-week period of time. Daniel 9:24 says, 70 weeks have been decreed for your people and your holy city, to finish the transgression, to make an end of sin, to make atonement for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy place. Now we know the 70 weeks described in Daniel 9:24 are symbolic because the Jews have been restoring Jerusalem for the last 92 years, and because the 2,300 days described in Daniel 8:13 through 14 that lapse between the time the Antichrist first arises and Jesus begins reigning for 1,000 years from Jerusalem, which is part of the restoration of Jerusalem, is longer than 70 weeks. Daniel 8:13 through 14 states, "Then I heard a holy one speaking, and another holy one said to that particular one who was speaking, How long will the vision about the regular sacrifice apply, while the transgression causes horror, so as to allow both the holy place and the host to be trampled? He said to me, For 2,300 evenings and mornings, then the holy place will be properly restored." Now Isaiah 4:2 tells us that sin is ended in Jerusalem when the 1,000 years begins, because it explains that the only people who will be in Jerusalem at that time will be those whose names are found written in the book of life. Isaiah 4:2 says, "In that day the branch of the Lord will be beautiful and glorious, and the fruit of the earth will be the pride and the adornment of the survivors of Israel. It will come about that he who is left in Zion and remains in Jerusalem will be called holy, everyone who is recorded for life in Jerusalem." Daniel 9:25 tells us that the 70 weeks begins when God decrees the restoration of Israel, when it states, "So you are to know and discern that from the issuing of a decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem, there will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. It will be built again with plaza and moat, even in times of distress." Now Luke 19:44 tells us that the restoration of Israel that Gabriel explained to Daniel is a result of Israel being dispersed, because they did not recognize that Jesus is the Messiah. This was fulfilled in 70 AD, when the Romans destroyed the temple and dispersed the Jews. Luke 19:44 states, "And they will level you to the ground, and your children within you, and they will not leave in you one stone upon another, because you did not recognize the time of your visitation." One day, as I was studying world history, Jesus revealed to me that the 7 weeks described in Daniel 9:25 began after World War I on April 25, 1920, when the Balfore Declaration was made part of the Treaty of Versailles, and the Jews officially began to return to Israel. This led to the understanding that the 7 weeks ended in 1939, when Britain issued the White Paper and placed a naval blockade along the coast of Israel to stop the Jews from returning to Israel. The 62 weeks began after World War II on November 29, 1947, when the General Assembly of the United Nations voted in favor of partitioning Palestine, and again the Jews officially began returning to Israel. On May 14, 1948, after the last British soldier left, Israel became a nation and was immediately recognized by the United States and the Soviet Union. We are currently in the 62 weeks, and so far the 62 weeks includes the 1948 War of Independence, the 1956 Sinai War, the 1967 Six-Day War, the 1971 Yom Kippur War, the Palestinian riots, and the 2006 Hezbollah War. Daniel 9:26-27 tells us that the 70th week will begin when the Antichrist first arises and makes the peace treaty with many nations regarding Israel, and ends when Jesus completes the destruction of the false prophet, who is the one who makes desolate, and the Antichrist, when he throws them into the lake of fire and he begins reigning from Jerusalem for 1,000 years. Daniel 9:26-27 states, "Then after the 62 weeks, the Messiah will be cut off and have nothing, and the people of the prince who is to come will destroy the city and the sanctuary, and its end will come with a flood. Even to the end there will be war, desolations are determined. And he will make a firm covenant with the many for 1 week. But in the middle of the week he will put a stop to sacrifice and grain offering. And on the wing of abominations will come one who makes desolate, even until a complete destruction, one that is decreed, is poured out on the one who makes desolate." Now, as I was sharing these insights with other believers, I found that many churches are teaching that Daniel 9 is a prophetic vision of the crucifixion of Jesus. They claim that when Gabriel said in Daniel 9:27 that the Messiah would be cut off, he was describing the crucifixion of Jesus. However, when you take into consideration that Gabriel also told Daniel that before the Messiah would be cut off, there would be a man who would make a covenant with many, and that when he breaks it, this will result in the Messiah being cut off, and that at that time, he and the one who makes desolate would remove the regular sacrifice, you can see that the idea that the vision pertains to when Jesus was crucified does not fit what is described in the vision. We know that there was no covenant that was made prior to Jesus being crucified, that when it was broken, resulted in the crucifixion of Jesus. And we also know that the regular sacrifice was not removed when Jesus was crucified. Now, as I mentioned already, we can also see that this vision is not about the crucifixion of Jesus, because Gabriel told Daniel that he had come to give him understanding. And when he said this, he was telling him that he had come to give him understanding of the vision he had recorded in Daniel 8, that according to Daniel 8:27, he did not understand, which according to Daniel 8:14, pertains to the end of the end times. We can also see that the vision does not pertain to the crucifixion of Jesus, because in Daniel 9:24-25, Gabriel told Daniel that the vision pertained to the restoration and rebuilding of the city of Jerusalem, and we know that at the time Jesus was crucified, Jerusalem was not being restored and it was not being rebuilt. Now, as you can see, the insights that Jesus revealed to me regarding the fulfillment of the 7 weeks and the 62 weeks coincide with the restoration of Jerusalem and the time period that the restoration of Jerusalem takes place described in the vision.